Why does evolution matter? Grains such as wheat and corn provide 75% of the food the world eats. Today, a corn plant produces twice the grain that it did 30 years ago, and probably about 10 times what it could a century ago. Why? Because we have found out that living things are changeable. Over many generations, we can change them into things that serve us better. Nowadays, we do it very systematically and on purpose, very carefully. We've done it more haphazardly for thousands of years. Somewhere in our dim past, we discovered that if we mate our best plants and animals, or save the best seeds, and destroy or eat the less perfect ones, each generation will get slightly better or more fit by our standards. But corn, for instance, is still being improved and still has enemies. One way we could improve it is to find its wild ancestor, the native grass that our ancestors started cultivating. The problem is that we have changed corn so much that it now looks very different from any wild grasses. But understanding that corn has evolved has allowed agricultural researchers to find its wild cousin. Now, using the science of genetics, we can borrow the genes from that relative to improve corn. We are making it more resistant to disease and insects and more tolerant of salt and drought, or lack of water. That's one thing we can do with a knowledge of evolution and genetics. Feed a hungry world. Research into improving animals, livestock, is just as dependent on modern evolutionary biology. How could we even conceive of using ancestral genes to improve breeds if we thought that all plants and animals were just created in their present forms? So basically what it's saying is that we know that these animals have changed over time, so we know that we can continue to change them to make them more suitable for our needs. If you want to see evolution in action, all you have to do is look for things with very short times between generations, like insects, for instance. That means that they have a shorter lifespan. So an insect has a short lifespan. That's why we can study multiple generations of its life. The major problem with bugs, from our point of view, is that their generations are so short that they can evolve fast. So what? So every farmer must be painfully aware that he has to be very careful how he uses pesticides, which kill bugs. If he uses too much, too often, he may force bugs to evolve more rapidly and become resistant so that the poison no longer kills them. This isn't just a theory. It happens. There are many pesticides that are now useless because the bugs they were used on have evolved into something that is no longer bothered by those poisons. They may not be new species yet, but they are no longer the same insects either. The U.S. Department of Agriculture and the multinational, multi-billion-dollar agribusinesses take evolution very seriously. Consider those other bugs, germs. Modern hospitals have learned the hard way just how fast bacteria can evolve. They have accidentally created, by using too many antibiotics, new breeds of super germs that have evolved to resist antibiotics, which are supposed to make us better. It's now a race. Can we find new antibiotics fast enough to keep up with the mutation and natural selection rates of killers like resistant staphylococcus? And if we do find something that kills it, do we run the risk of forcing it to just evolve again and into an even more unstoppable form? Our first step in understanding AIDS was to figure out what it had evolved from. It didn't just appear magically. We have also discovered that it will be very difficult to make an AIDS vaccine because the HIV virus has developed the trick of evolving so fast that something that prevents it this year probably won't next year. Another of its tricks is to mutate or evolve into many different strains within each victim's body, so that the immune system can never find and eliminate all the viruses. If researchers didn't know that life has always changed and continues to change, if they didn't believe in evolution, how could they deal with the turbocharged evolutionary rates of these tiniest and deadliest life forms? Finally, a true horror story. A few years ago, there was a little girl known to the concerned public as Baby Faye, who needed a heart transplant. Human doctors are hard to find. Human donors are hard to find. so don't be where they would get the new heart, especially for infants. So a daring surgeon convinced the parents to let him implant a baboon's heart. A baboon is kind of like a monkey. A hopeful world held its breath while skeptical biologists scratched their heads. A baboon's heart? But everyone hoped for the best. Sadly, baby Faye died after a few weeks. Among the contributing factors may have been that her immune system hadn't recognized the heart and thought it was something foreign, and so it attacked it. After the sensational news story had died down, it was reported that a biologist asked the surgeon why he had chosen a baboon donor, which is much more distant of a relative of ours in evolutionary terms than a chimpanzee, which is our closest relative. Wouldn't there have been less danger of rejection with a heart from a closer relative like the chimpanzee? The surgeon's answer: he hadn't even taken that into consideration because he didn't believe in evolution. To him, no creatures were related to each other, since they had all been created at once in their present forms. Maybe a chimpanzee's heart would not have saved baby Faye either, but the chances might have been better. One would think that a doctor or scientist would want to use the best available knowledge, such as what we understand about evolutionary biology and the relationship of organisms.